I want to talk to Taylor Lincoln. He is the research director for Public Citizen. Now, we often talk about campaign finance reform, but one of the new research that has come out about that is very interesting. I'm not sure I entirely agree with it, but it's a fascinating concept, and Taylor knows all about it, and that's why we brought him on. Welcome to the Young Turks, Taylor.
Oh, thanks, Cenk. Good to be here, and how dare you disagree with me?
Yeah, we haven't even started yet.
Well, I just heard.
I know. So it makes me even more wrong. All right, so tell me about this report on how companies that disclose electoral spending are more valuable than companies that don't. So explain that and tell us how it breaks down.
Okay, so here's the evidence, and it's part and parcel of a broader stream of evidence, research that has been conducted by John Coates, who's a Harvard law professor. And for years, he has looked at companies' performance in the stock market, which he values technically as what their stock price is compared to their book value. The book value meaning if you liquidated the company, what could you sell the parts for, essentially? Mm-hmm. And then how does the market value the company? It turns out that through various periods of time dating back to, I think, 1998, and in repeated studies, those companies that don't have PACs or spend less on their PACs or don't lobby or spend less lobbying enjoy better price-to-book values than those who do have PACs, which we would sort of equate with trying to buy favors in the systems and so forth, or do spend money on lobbying.
Well, that's really interesting. And so, that would lead to two different conclusions. One is that, hey, don't have PACs.
Right. I'm
very skeptical about that, but I at least understand the research that you're bringing out here, that you're quoting from the professor, obviously.
Right.
And then the second has to do with revealing your political contributions, doesn't it?
Okay. So we decided, well, let's do some more research here. What's something we can all agree on? It's that, who is against disclosure, really? What human being? That's always been a Republican talking point. They don't really like campaign finance restrictions. Mm-hmm. You can kind of imagine, you've probably been at or can imagine the sort of cocktail party line. That's what I always say. Let them spend whatever they want, but let's have them disclose it.
Right, except they never disclose it.
The Wall Street Journal type line, right?
Right.
It's a simple solution, which isn't actually as simple because defining what is election spending gets a little tricky. But nonetheless, in theory, that's what we're all agreed upon. So we took a look at the Center for Political Accountability has been working for years to get Fortune 500 companies or S&P 500 companies to agree to voluntary disclosure policies, which takes on new meaning in the wake of Citizens United because now corporate efforts to overtly affect elections are legal. And the way companies spend money to affect elections really isn't by spending money in their own name. It doesn't say Coca-Cola endorses Smith, right?
Right.
They give the money to the Chamber of Commerce, or maybe they give the money to one of these innumerable front groups. And about 85 companies have policies to varying degrees in which they say, well, we're going to disclose this. We think it's the right thing to do. And again, who wouldn't? I'm a shareholder in this company. Can't I know how they're trying to affect elections? Right. And Professor Coates ran the numbers, correcting for industry and correcting for various other factors. And it turned out those companies that have adopted disclosure policies are worth 7.5% more on the whole than companies that don't have the disclosure policies.
Okay, now that part I believe totally. And I don't think you can even make an argument against it, except we lose on it anyway because the guys who bought the politicians are the ones that are writing the rules. But, the owners of the company should absolutely know who they're giving the money to.
That's right. And I think, the piece that we wrote, Professor Coates and I were pretty cautious in terms of how we portrayed the results, in the sense that this stuff is pretty tricky. Like how you determine what a company's value is, or how you figure out what the stock market value of a company is, inures to so many different factors. And you kind of hear, like if you listen to CNBC, mm-hmm. You'll hear there's always a reason how the market went that day, right?
Right,
like,
of course. It's always nonsense.
The Dow was down 1.1%, or 134 points today on news that Nike missed third quarter expectations in Eastern Europe.
Right.
Well, maybe that was the reason. There could be all different
and Obama gave a speech, and the market didn't.
Who knows, right? So there's a whole bunch of reasons stock prices could move up or down. I happen to think that if it really holds true by various different ways of measuring how a company does, either whether they have political PACs, and engage in the activity, or whether they disclose the activity, that those that do the least and disclose the most may well do better, because just the values that would lead them to that decision are good values, and the kind of people that would make those sort of decisions might well run good companies. And an example of that is former Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill. Mm-hmm. When he first got to Alcoa in either the 80s or the 90s, I'm not quite sure, within a week he shut down the company's PAC. And he just basically thought it's just not the right thing to do. That's a way that you're trying to get something you don't deserve. And also, if you have a PAC, then you're going to be being beseeched by candidates all the time that are wanting money and so forth.
The funny thing is that's actually a conservative position, right? And you could argue it's a liberal position too, but Paul O'Neill, of course, was Bush's Treasury Secretary in the beginning. But nobody is a conservative anymore. Like, the people who pretend to be conservatives aren't conservatives. They love it when companies buy our politicians, which should not be a conservative ideological position at all. But and the other way of looking at it is Paul O'Neill, who was Bush's first Treasury Secretary, is way to the left of Obama's Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner.
Yeah, well, Paul O'Neill was, he may have been a conservative at heart in certain ways, but he was a pragmatist and not an ideologue.
Yeah.
He had solid values.
No, Paul O'Neill was 10 times better Treasury Secretary than Tim Geithner.
Well, I would agree, and it's certainly 100 times more candid.
Yeah, and no question about that either. Well,
and so I think that there's a decent chance that it's no. You can kind of agree. It's just no good to be trying to buy the system, and it's no good to be hiding your spending. And really, they're fools for fighting things like the Disclose Act and so forth, because I actually think it's going to hurt them in public opinion, because it just plain looks bad.
Yeah, but I don't think so, because the Democrats never punish him for it, because the Democrats are guilty of the same crimes, so they sweep it under the rug. If they wanted to, they made political ads on it, they can capitalize, but they won't, because they also take money. So, but last thing then, Taylor, though, is to go back to our disagreement, because on the first half of it, with companies, you explain market value to book value, and that's a legitimate way of measuring it. But look, in reality, ExxonMobil is the most profitable company in the world, or maybe the second most at this point. And what do? They buy politicians left and right, and it gets them tens of billions of dollars in subsidies that they don't deserve at all. And I mean, that's one of a million examples I can give you. So I think that buying politicians is a great investment. That's why we should prevent it. But I think it returns excellent value on your dollar.
Well, I think that Exxon would probably be doing just fine anyway. I mean, if you look at the BP oil spill, I mean, Cenk, how hard is it to make money? Did you see how fast that oil was coming out of that pipe for 24 hours a day?
No, Taylor, I'm with you. No, I get that. They'd be making money either way, but they're making more money because they don't have to pay royalty rights in the Gulf of Mexico. They get the subsidies. And then when you look at any industry, look at the banks. I mean, they made trillions of dollars, and none of them got arrested because they bought the politicians. I mean, when you look at it that way, and they didn't go to jail, and they got to make even more money. It's tough to argue with buying U.S. politicians. I think is the best investment anybody can make.
That could well be. And you make good points. And I actually just love the disagreement more than I even might disagree with you. But I think that the bigger point that we try to make in the piece is Citizens United, the opinion, was a bit of a compact that Kennedy put forward. And Kennedy said, we've got disclosure. And we never before had corporate spending with disclosure. And he said, now we have disclosure. And he basically took that cocktail party line, and he said, full disclosure, unlimited spending. And he said, shareholders can police the company. And so, in a way, our piece has two facets to it. One is to say, here's some numbers that show that if you agree to disclosure, it's not going to hurt you. And Cenk Uygur might disagree with you. But you don't even disagree on the disclosure part, right?
No, I agree on the disclosure part.
So we're saying it ain't going to hurt you, okay?
Right.
Second is, we all know it's right, period, just on its face. And three is that was the deal in Citizens United, and we hammer that home on every report we write on Citizens United. The deal was we're going to have disclosure. And Kennedy either misled the public by creating the impression that he thought there was disclosure, or he was just incompetent. But he said we're going to have unlimited corporate spending and we're going to have disclosure. Now, I don't happen to like unlimited corporate spending. I'm not saying I would take the deal, but that's the deal we were given. It had two parts to it: unlimited corporate spending and full disclosure.
Right, and we didn't get the second part.
We got is unlimited corporate spending, and so at Public Citizen, that's one of the points that we try to just nail home.
No, Taylor, and that's a great point, and I've quoted you guys on that before. And it's part of, unfortunately, our broken system where the different regulatory agencies that are supposed to bring you disclosure just don't do their jobs.
They don't, but also the law. It's a complicated law.
Right, and the Republicans won't pass the Disclosure Act.
Promise had already been eliminated before Kennedy wrote the opinion, and I don't think he understood it. I think he honestly thought that Dow Chemical would be running these ads, not Americans for Job Security.
Yeah, well, he was wrong, which isn't the first time Kennedy's been wrong.
But I'm sure after he saw our piece in the Washington Post, I'm sure he feels really bad and probably wants to fix it.
And I'm sure he can't wait to reverse himself.
I'm sure that's the case, and it's a pleasure chatting with you.
Absolutely, Taylor. Taylor Link is the research director for Public Citizen, and they're fighting a good fight to make sure we can clean up our elections. Godspeed.
Thanks so much.